to the NXT Podcast, your home for weekly NXT reviews and insight.
The beautiful part of NXT is that when one dream ends, another dream begins.
Find all of your NXT news, recaps, and analysis right here. So with that being said, we only have one question for you.
Are you ready?
We thought so. Let's get the show started right now.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NXT Podcast. I am so excited that you are here. As always, I am your host. My name is Zachary Smith. Again, couldn't be happier to be here to talk about NXT following TakeOver in Your House, a fantastic in your house show as they usually are at takeovers. Now, as you know, we're going to cover that whole NXT show, and we're going to get to talk a little bit about TakeOver in Your House as well. Now, before we do get started, you can always find me over on Twitter. I am at ZachNXT because I'm branded, baby, at ZACHNXT. Talking wrestling and other fun stuff over there. Come through over there. Now, before we get started on NXT this week, we have to do the news segment, which is a carefully curated and researched segment, and it's not me typing WWE into Google and just reacting to what's there, because, I mean, that'd be unprofessional, right? And that's not what we do here, right? But, like, if you were going to do that, like, if you're going to be unprofessional, you'd see that, like, some of the headlines, not a lot going on. Charlotte Flair wants to be WWE's next supervillain. I am the bad guy. I am glad that she has that self-confidence. I will say there's a difference between being the bad guy like Roman Reigns, where you're like an actual bad guy and you're the villain, and there's a difference between we don't like any of the stories that you are in or the way that you are used, and so it's more like apathy towards you than it is like you doing something that makes you unlikable. She's excellent in the ring. She's gotten much better as a talker. I think the disconnect for fans is that they like to remind you a lot that she's Ric Flair's daughter. She's got the techno remix or the sped up remix of her dad's theme, and she's constantly put in position. It's the Roman Reigns thing, isn't it? It's the Roman Reigns good guy thing where he was always put in the main events no matter what, and fans aren't going to respond to that. And it's also the WWE really, 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 really wanting you to know that she's the greatest woman to ever step foot in a WWE ring. Like, when her career is over, they will point to all her championship wins and all that and big moments and tell you the story of how she was one of the greatest. Whereas it's a little bit more of a Triple H thing thus far, through no fault of her own. Charlotte Flair's not like the woman. She's the woman that works with the woman, no matter how you position her. So, like, you're probably not going to be like the villain. You'd also see that it says Hell in a Cell is really bad at preventing outside interference. Yes, it is. So are steel cages. Really, like, Elimination Chamber's the only one that immediately comes to mind that, like, doesn't have outside interference. Everything else, I guess, is like when they were established, steel cages, Hell in a Cell, it was supposed to, and they just don't. So yeah, I mean, that's just part of it, and I suppose that's too bad, but that's what we're doing. Former WWE star Lana threatened to, quote, spill the tea on WWE chairman Vince McMahon's company after being, quote, silenced for a long time. I don't know if she's actually going to do that. But, yeah, I mean, I would imagine that there's a lot of tea to be spilled about one Vince McMahon. So yeah, let's do that, because maybe we could start holding people accountable for their actions and almost cursed bad behavior, Two WWE legends plead with Vince McMahon to push Cesaro. Looks like Mick Foley was one of them and Stone Cold Steve Austin was the other. Pardon me. Yeah, Cesaro should be pushed, and he was for a minute, and now he's not going to be again because that's how WWE sees him. I sincerely hope that he is happy with the money that he is making because he's going to be at a certain level. And that's just how they, and by they I mean Vince, sees him, which is that he's Swiss, he doesn't connect with the audience. So rather than like finding a way to help him connect with the audience, we're just going to label him as a person who can't connect with the audience. And so in 20 years when we're doing a podcast and somebody asks about it, we can laugh and say, oh, didn't have it, when really the decision makers are the ones that don't have it. So yeah, he's not gonna get pushed, and that sucks. Will Matt Cardona, formerly Zack Ryder, ever go back to WWE? I don't know why he would do that. That man is legitimately a pioneer in social media, in wrestling, and WWE kind of used that to help build out some of their social media stuff and video stuff, and never gave him the credit he deserved for it, and never used him in any kind of meaningful way. So I don't know why he would go back to WWE. They never did anything with him. They wouldn't let him do his own thing and got mad when he got over with it, and then was released during a pandemic, which I hate to keep mentioning, but it does bear mentioning that they keep releasing all these people during a pandemic. I know that we're getting vaccinated, and that's wonderful. Do not ever forget that we're still in a pandemic. There's not as many options as there were, and you're just releasing people when you're the richest of the rich in wrestling. So, no, I would not imagine he's going to go back, because why would you? You're never going to be anything more than you were in WWE. WWE is very bad at seeing somebody in a different light than they were. Every once in a while, you'll get an AJ Styles where they come in, and really what it is that Vince takes a liking to them. I don't see any reason why that would happen. He would come back, and it would be a big deal for a week, and then he'd be right back to losing an Intercontinental title match or a United States title match, and we'd be right back where we are. But we're not talking about main roster here, man. It's not what we do on this podcast. We'll let Matt handle that main roster nonsense. That's why I kicked him over to the main. I said, Matt, hey, Matt, go look at the main show, you lackey. Go look at the worst show. He's like, but I don't want to. I was like, I didn't ask what you wanted to do. I'm going to cover the good wrestling show. And that's why Matt does, like, Raw reviews. We're going to talk about NXT. There's no way he's ever going to hear this. It's fine. NXT starts, and they changed a little bit that WWE intro theme. They keep tweaking it. It's still not like a good theme, but it's certainly a little bit different every time, isn't it? Recap of the NXT In Your House show, which was fantastic. Team Bronson Reed won against Legado del Fantasma. It was a really fun match. You don't usually see a six-man tag where two different titles are on the line all in one. And it let MSK and Bronson Reed kind of shine, and Legado del Fantasma got a big match where they can show out, because that's what they do. And, it's the right decision. Bronson Reed and MSK are still new to those titles. Do I think that, like, Santos Escobar would make a better North American champion than Bronson Reed? Yes, in the way that those characters are used. I don't know in terms of, like, the performers themselves, although I suspect Escobar. But it's not, if you're going to put the championship on Bronson Reed and have him beat Johnny Gargano for it, it's not the time to take it off him. Respect the move. Xia Li beats Mercedes Martinez. That's also the right decision. Xia Li's kind of on the rise with this new character. They tend to get infatuated with a new character when they have an idea like this, and Pardon me. Unfortunately, right now, Mercedes Martinez is not in a consequential position, not through fault of her own, but that's just how it shakes out sometimes. For every person that is in a good position, it takes at least one other person in not a good position to put that person over, and Mercedes Martinez did a great job of that. And I will remind you, she's still the winner because she's not in, and that name of that group has completely left my head, and it doesn't matter, the Mustafa Ali group, and I'm trying to remind myself of the name, and it's occurring to me now that it doesn't matter because we're going to remember that as like a joke that they took too seriously. Retribution. There it is. I vamped long enough to get it. She's still the winner because never forget, Mercedes Martinez was in Retribution and then said, hey, I'd love to not be doing this anymore. Please send me back to NXT, and they did, and she made the best decision of anybody. So Xia Li picks up the win there. I'm not sure what we're doing with Xia Li past this, or we're just going to keep kind of building her and giving her different opponents, feeding her opponents. That's a really good way to build somebody, giving her established people to work with now and a step up in competition. Fantastic. I'm excited to see what we do with Xia Li and that character. LA Knight wins the $1 million title. He beats Cameron Grimes in that ladder match. I don't remember if I think I said this on the podcast that I was going with LA Knight because I wanted him to win, but I didn't necessarily think that he would. Now seeing what happened tonight, I see the story that we're telling, or at least the foundation of it. And LA Knight winning was the right move. But beyond that, LA Knight was the right move because Cameron Grimes is already at a certain level in NXT. And you could bring him up higher, kind of a breaking case of emergency. But they're going to have him at this level where he's like comedic and can carry skits by himself on his personality and his ability to talk. And then, like on that promo, the last NXT show, he can cut a hell of a promo. And he's sincerely fantastic. He could be a main eventer with the talent that he has. I say that completely unironically. But LA Knight has all of the tools to do that. He has the physique, which is important in WWE. Don't ever forget it. It's not as important in NXT as it is on the main roster where Matt lives. But it's still important. Pardon me. Still getting over the sickness. It's pretty great, but I don't have to pause every 5 seconds. LA Knight has that physique. He has the wrestling ability, and his matches pop. And he has the ability to talk. Now, does he overuse his catchphrases? Yes. You know who else overuses his catchphrases? Literally everybody on the main roster. NXT, a little bit less so, but still. So if he can get a little bit out of his shtick, if they let him just kind of be him. I've heard him just like talk in interviews before. He's incredibly charismatic and entertaining. He has it. And up till now, he's just been kind of bouncing around, not really doing anything. It seemed like the kind of thing where, like, they wanted to sign Eli Drake but didn't have a plan for him. Well, now we have a plan. Now we have a standing. Now we have a situation to put him in that makes him feel important. And this is the $1 million title. Like, it has a history because of Ted DiBiase, but all in all, in the history of wrestling, that is not an important championship. The ringmaster, who became Stone Cold, had it. Ted DiBiase Jr. had it. And then they gave it to Ted DiBiase originally because he was never going to win the WWF title. So, like, in the grand scheme of things, not an important championship. But Ted DiBiase, very important. So, by proxy, that $1 million title's important because Cameron Grimes and LA Knight played it like it was. And so now him being the $1 million champion, fantastic choice. He was absolutely the right choice. I am so excited and a little bit nervous to see where LA Knight goes from here. Raquel Gonzalez beats Ember Moon to retain the women's title. Ember Moon was going to hit the Eclipse, but then Raquel lifts her up, does the power bomb, and retains. I mean, we knew that was going to happen. Ember Moon, as always, puts up a great effort puts up a great fight in a losing effort for the Women's Championship. It's good to see that nothing's changed in 2 stints on NXT. I'm certainly not upset about it. I'm just saying that's what she does. Karrion Kross retains the NXT title by choking out, I believe it was Kyle O'Reilly. Fantastic. There's madness backstage, and Regal's concerned about the bedlam and madness, thinks it's time for a change. And what do you know? William Regal's out first. His music doesn't seem to be playing, but his video is. That's weird. He said, I've been with NXT since the beginning, from day one in some form or another, says hi to Beth Phoenix on the announce team. He says, I got to call the very first takeover. William Regal's actually already emotional already. He's getting choked up. Now, initially in my notes, I write, I don't like where this is about to go. He said, I sat for the first few years and watched NXT become this beautiful thing that it became. He said, even in going from Portland to all these different cities, and in 2015, my nieces got to sit with me in Blackpool, my hometown, and watch a show. He says, every moment not with my family has been spent thinking about this place and how to make it better. He says, I've decided with the chaos going around here, I've given you everything I can give now. He says, because of all of you, the competitors, the staff, you at home watching, I don't think I am capable of giving you what you deserve anymore. This is where I thought it was going, and I wasn't going to like it. He says, I think it's time for me too, and he's cut off by Karrion Kross's music. Karrion Kross is out with Scarlett at his side as always. Karrion Kross is in a suit and tie. That's different. I mean, he's worn a suit before. It's just always weird seeing Karrion Kross in a suit. It's weird when you're a wrestling fan because you're more used to seeing dudes in like essentially their underwear than in like full clothing. And that's just a thing that you have to think about yourself. But it is weird nonetheless. He hands the title to Scarlett, gets in the ring, says her and I always knew this day would come. We just didn't know when. The moment we heard all that, we had to come out here and see and feel it for ourselves. Are you crying, Mr. Regal? You are completely pathetic. 1 week ago, I told you you lost control of this roster and you knew it was true. And then at TakeOver, when I punched a hole through the Mount Rushmore of NXT, you knew I could control this place through violence and chaos, and now here we are, and I want you to say it. Tell these people you're leaving, and then walk up that aisle and never come back. Say that Kross was right. We don't have all night tick-tock. Now, it's important to note a few things. Regal's been fantastic with the emotion up till now. Regal, during that, crosses in his face. Regal does not flinch or back up at all. I love that detail. William Regal is the general manager. He's not a wrestler anymore. But do not ever forget that he is a fighter from Blackpool, and that is still in him. That's a small little character detail that you might not even notice. Not that I'm more observant than you, but like it might not occur to you. And maybe if you've never seen William Regal the wrestler, but William Regal the wrestler, when he wasn't, a cowardly, had to think of a not curse, a cowardly bad guy, he was just a tough Blackpool dude. And even if I'm a general manager in a suit now who's not going to get physical with you, what I will not do is be intimidated by anybody, especially in a wrestling ring. That's not how this is going to work with Regal. He's really, really good at those small details. Now, they're still face-to-face, and they're interrupted by Samoa effing Joe returning. Now, Karrion Kross and Scarlett look over when that music hits. William Regal is looking a little bit down, not quite at Karrion Kross when the music hits. His eyes go a little bit down, towards the ring, and he doesn't react at all. Knowing what happens later in the segment, he knew Joe was here, he was expecting him, and he's forlorn because he knows what he's about to do. I want you to understand that sometimes wrestling storytelling can be subtle and it can be beautiful, and I don't mean to be pretentious, but it can be art. What William Regal did here was art with his acting performance. He knew that Samoa Joe being here is a big deal, and normally he would be very psyched, but one, this is a person that's given him hell in the past, and also what he's about to do is not a celebratory occasion, and so he doesn't even need to react. And he does more with just his facial expressions than a lot of people can do with a 20-minute promo. And that's why William Regal will forever be one of the unsung heroes of WWE, maybe wrestling, man. Like, if he didn't have demons that he was fighting, I don't know where he would have gone and if he would have made it higher than he did. But if he could have, dude, with his work in the ring and his character stuff, there was few people that can touch him when he was right. And that's the story of a lot of people in wrestling, but William Regal was and is special. Now, again, Regal doesn't react, that's so great, but Samoa Joe is effing back in effing NXT, baby. That's awesome. I love that, like, he got fired or released and then got a promotion in terms of, like, creativity, because he's already so much more interesting than he was just as the commentator that wanted to wrestle. Now, do not get me wrong. Samoa Joe was already one of the best commentators the first time he did it when he was on WWE. But his talents can be used in a lot of different ways, not just with commentary. And it shows. Now he's coming down to the ring, and I can guarantee you this promo is going to be great. I'm so sure. Now Joe gets in the ring. He stares down Cross. He says, "Mr. Regal, I believe you wanted to speak with me." Regal says, "I did, Joe, but not in these circumstances, but you're here." He says, "Because of my love for NXT, I think everybody deserves a general manager who can hold the position with integrity that it deserves," and he offers Joe the job. Now, before this, everybody was booing about him losing the job, and then they cheer when it was Samoa Joe. There are few people you could have brought out there that would have been able to take the general manager job from William Regal, and people would have been psyched, and Samoa Joe's one of those people. He is that special, especially as a promo. Samoa Joe is that he's one of the few people that if he were in a, let's say Regal was back in the ring and he was in a program, Samoa Joe was one of the few people that could hang with William Regal promo-wise. Adam Cole could. Let's see. Finn Balor could have. Maybe not Ciampa, not promo-wise. My point is there's very, very few guys that could do it, and Samoa Joe is one of them. So, he says, "Joe, I am no longer able to keep this up." And Samoa Joe says, "My answer is absolutely not." He says, "I know you're weary, but what I see is in the 7 years you've been here, you've brought in so much talent, myself included. You've transformed this company to an international phenomenon. You cast a long shadow and have large shoes to fill, so I cannot accept, but I'll make you this offer." He says, "I made your life hell when I was here, but I always afforded you respect. With that being said, I would be more than happy to make sure you receive the respect you deserve from everybody." He's looking at Karrion Kross when he says that. That is a super interesting idea. Now, Regal says, interesting idea. If that is something that I'm willing to do, there's some conditions. You can't be a competitor, and you cannot lay a hand on anyone. And then he looks at Kross and says, "Unless provoked." Joe says, "Mr. Regal, I accept your offer." He says, "One question left still to be answered." Turns to Kross, gets in his face. "What are you still doing in this ring?" Says, "Tick-tock, young champion." Fantastic. This wasn't one of those classic Samoa Joe promos like the Jeff Hardy stuff he would do or the Brock Lesnar stuff, but with very few words, Samoa Joe made you feel him, and that is so difficult to do. especially through the TV. And Samoa Joe is one of the few people, along with William Regal, sometimes Adam Cole, Finn Balor, now Roman Reigns, people like that who can make you feel it through the screen without saying much in terms of word count. Cross backs up first. I legitimately don't know that he's done that before. Karrion Kross doesn't tend to back down from people, especially those that directly challenge him. It's kind of his whole thing. That is an example of how you can put somebody over without ever stepping into the ring with him, because Karrion Kross backing down from him does a few things. It shows Karrion Kross is a monster, but he's also a bad guy. He's not just going to get into a fight. He's smart, but also it shows that he will never admit it, the character that is, but that means that there's something of a fear of Samoa Joe in him. Which means if this monster Karrion Kross is backing down from Samoa Joe, what the hell does this Samoa Joe guy have? That's fantastic. And Karrion Kross and Scarlett leave. Joe and Regal shake hands, so I guess he's going to be like the enforcer / assistant to the GM. We come back from commercial and Regal is mad as security separating Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. He says, I'm sick of this. There'll be an unsanctioned match at the Great American Bash, O'Reilly versus Cole. Could have sworn we just did that, but whatever. And then this week, you'll pick your own opponents, I believe, for next week. I had a lot of confusion. I thought they were picking each other's opponents. They're picking their own opponents. Now, Samoa Joe jumps in to break them up, and Adam Cole shoves Samoa Joe out of the way to get to Kyle O'Reilly. That's provocation, baby. And Samoa Joe immediately slaps on the chokehold that I forget the name of because I'm a bad wrestling fan, and chokes Adam Cole out, again putting over Samoa Joe in this role, not as an in-ring competitor, but as an enforcer, and Samoa Joe is perfect for an enforcer. Chokes him out, leaves him laying on the ground. He says, when he wakes up, tell him Mr. Regal expects his decision. Whoa, Samoa Joe's going to be so good with William Regal. I can't wait. I legitimately cannot wait to watch that every week. Like, it would have been hard to make William Regal better in his segments each week, but this is a way that you can do it, adding one of the best promos that WWE has had in I do not know how long, if ever, Samoa Joe. And he could be an enforcer that way. He can still be a badass and intimidating, but you also don't have the constant in-ring stuff so that he doesn't run the risk of injury. It's the perfect use of Samoa Joe at this time. Now, we come back from commercial, and Kushida is in the ring for his open challenge for the Cruiserweight title. His opponent is somebody who's been turning heads and impressing in the Performance Center. A young up-and-comer, so on and so forth. Trey Baxter. He's all heart, he says. He's a very skinny guy. All heart is his nickname, also his way of life. He's a fighter. Woof, this is a boring promo. I don't think this is his fault, but the NXT sometimes does this thing. They did this with MSK too, where it's like, I'm a good guy. I'm going to fight with everything I have, and I got a heart of steel, and I'm going to show you why when I step in that ring. I don't care, dude. That's nothing against Trey Baxter. Like, the person, it's the character and the way he's portrayed. There's nothing there. There's nothing to, I won't give up. Most people won't in the ring if they're good guys. Like, that's not a foundational character thing. That's nothing. That's fluff. That's extra. And it's something that, like, doesn't connect. Stories connect and personal stuff connects. And that's why Karrion Kross is so good right now, because he dropped some of the spooky stuff and started being like a real person. That's why Finn Balor was such a big deal in this run, because he was a real person. This Trey Baxter is like catchphrases. That doesn't work. They have a good match. Kushida gets him in the hoverboard lock and retains the title. Kyle O'Reilly's applauding on the ringside here. So he comes closer to the ring. Kushida shakes hands with Baxter, show of respect. O'Reilly gives him a pat on the back, and then O'Reilly gets in the ring. Kyle O'Reilly says, I'm not here to accept your open challenge. He said, I'm here to challenge you next week, you and me. He says, I want to face the best. So I was real wrong. I don't know why I thought they were picking each other's opponents. They're picking their own. So Kyle O'Reilly versus Kushida. That will be an excellent wrestling match. Come back from commercial. Ted DiBiase is making his entrance. The $1 million title and I think 2 security guards are now. The titles in the ring. Security guards are by ringside. Ted DiBiase says, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that in your house, I finally found somebody worthy of being the next $1 million champ. There's a short highlight video of LA Knight, a little bit of that mansion stuff that they did in the lead up, and a little bit of highlights in the ring and him talking. I wanted LA Knight to win. I didn't necessarily think he was going to. But again, I think it's the right choice. I think it's going to be really good for him. This is kind of perfect for both Eli Drake and this LA Knight character. It's kind of the perfect story. I don't know if it actually was tailor-made for him, but it's tailor-made for him. And LA Knight arrives outside in a very nice car. He has a cigar and sunglasses inside. He's got the douchebag starter kit. He comes out to the ring, introduced as the new $1 million champion. He says, gets in the ring. He says, it's not often we get to meet our heroes and share the ring with them, and they live up to that, especially in this business. That's true. To think that you make it to that place, and that hero then says that you could potentially be one of the suitors to carry on for him. It says, when you said the other week you guys climbed the ladder to success, I took that incredibly seriously. To be standing here with you right now is 100% worth it. I'm going to be honest. This was the best moment of my wrestling career. When he first came out, he had the sunglasses on. He was starting to say, let me tell you something, Ted. And he stops himself, takes off the glasses, and said, you know what? Actually, let me tell you something, Ted. That was a really cool way to acknowledge that that's the catchphrase and have him kind of decide not to do it. Maybe there's more of this in the future, like in different forms. That would be good, so he's not just catchphrases, because I promise you, if you're not familiar with Eli Drake and you haven't watched some of his NWA stuff, I promise you Eli Drake, LA Knight, is more than just those catchphrases and his voice being like if Stone Cold and The Rock had a baby. I promise you, he is so much more than that as a promo. He says, to be standing here with you is 100% worth it, because when I used to watch as a kid with my father, you were constantly on my TV screen. So the kids in the neighborhood, when we would wrestle, one of us was always the $1 million man. I had your action figure, and it had that title belt. He says, I needed you here tonight so that I could express my gratitude and appreciation and say thank you. This is honestly the greatest moment of my wrestling career. It would be the honor of my life for you to officially crown me as the $1 million champ. It's at this point I realize this is going to turn real bad. Ted DiBiase takes the title and puts it on LA Knight's shoulders. It actually does look good on LA Knight, kind of reinforcing that he's kind of perfect for this. The crowd at this part is chanting for Cameron Grimes as Ted DiBiase and LA Knight both laugh and pose as the sparkler things go off behind them. LA Knight says, look, I understand everything you're saying, but having this on my shoulder is beyond description. I've learned so much. Now that I've got everything that I want, it's time to drop what I don't need. And he decks Ted DiBiase, because of course he does. And it's great, and it's fantastic, and it's the right choice. If you're going to use Ted DiBiase, if you're going to put Ted DiBiase on TV and work off that nostalgia and have him give the rub to Cameron Grimes and LA Knight, have him give the rub to Cameron Grimes and LA Knight. If this were Ted DiBiase in his prime, this is exactly what Ted DiBiase would have done. And that's the point. Don't just have Ted DiBiase come in and walk off into the sunset after handing the title to LA Knight. That's not using Ted DiBiase to his full extent or capability. No, make heat off of it. Have LA Knight haul off on him. That's fantastic. fantastic. He's beating down Ted DiBiase, and here comes Cameron Grimes to save him. LA Knight gets that title and walks off hurt. This is a really cool program. I love what Ted DiBiase did with his promos and with what he was willing to do. Cannot thank him enough for giving back and putting some rocket fuel in Cameron Grimes and LA Knight, both guys who could definitely use it and I think will make the best of it. And I like to think that he really does see something in these two. And this is going to be really, really good for them. And this is a really good way to use a legend in WWE. LA Knight did not get over at the expense of Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase got Ted DiBiase'd. And now LA Knight's even more made as a despicable guy. Ted DiBiase walks away having done really, really great work. This is a fantastic way to use legends. You don't have to Goldberg it and just bring him back for no reason other than he brings eyes and then have him beat The Fiend or Kevin Owens for the title. You can have things like this where if somebody's willing to do it, keyword there, isn't it? Willing. And able to work and be convincing, which Goldberg has never been able to do. If you need him to, if you need somebody to kick somebody into retirement, he's got you. But if you need somebody to help put somebody over, nah. Even when he does it, he doesn't do it. Ted DiBiase gave everything he could to LA Knight. He handed it to him as much as he could. Fantastically done by him. And our next match is, for some reason, a tag match. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez are out first. Don't know who the other team is, but I bet Dakota Kai is probably going to lose. And then Caden Carter and Casey Catanzaro are the other team out. That's hard to say. Caden Carter, Casey Catanzaro. Caden Carter, Casey Catanzaro. Just try it. It rolls off the tongue and it doesn't at the same time. It's a weird feeling. So I see them and actually, okay, so they're going to lose, not Dakota. So that's good for Dakota. What do you know? They have a good match. Dakota Kai pins Casey Catanzaro after Raquel Gonzalez basically takes care of it by herself. So so Dakota Kai can win. Imagine that. She didn't forget how. Great, they win. Our main event is Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher, who's back out facing the grizzled young veterans in a tornado tag team match. Tag team match where there's no DQs, no countouts, so on and so forth. All four competitors are in the ring at the same time. It's my favorite version of a tag match that they don't do very much. I love it. I love chaos. That's why I love triple threat matches. That Kurt Angle Rock Undertaker match, I think it was from Vengeance, is one of my favorite matches of all time because it's chaos and the personalities in that match. I just love chaos with really good personalities. So these matches aren't used enough, and they have a barn burner. They get plenty of time. All four of these guys are great workers individually. Both of these teams are fantastic together, which credit to Grizzly Young Veterans, also credit to Ciampa and Thatcher, who have not been together that long. Ciampa and Thatcher end up winning with a double submission. It's like an ankle lock and a kind of, I don't know if it was a choke, but that's a cool finisher. It's a tag team submission finisher. You don't usually see that from a team. I was racking my brain trying to think of a WWE team that has won that way as like their tag team finisher, and I couldn't think of it, but holy crap, that's great. And we go off air with Ciampa and Thatcher talking smack. Seems like maybe they'll be in line for a tag team title shot soon. I will say, like, NXT still doesn't necessarily care about tag team wrestling, but I think Ciampa and Thatcher as tag team champs could do something. I mean, I would, you can still give MSK more time if you want and build that up, but maybe by the time we get to Great American Bash, maybe it's time for Ciampa and Thatcher to take those titles, because I think, at least setup-wise and promo-wise, it will be more interesting. But that's our main event, so that's our show. Good show, right? Really good, especially for a post-takeover. And we're already setting up stuff for Great American Bash. I'm excited about that. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly again in a in an unsanctioned match, even though that's what we just did, and I could have sworn we got it out of our system, but here we go. I don't know who our next women's title challenger is going to be, nor our NXT title challenger, but we have plenty of time to figure that out. Ciampa Thatcher might be coming after those tag titles. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited. Again, I'm on Twitter at ZachNXT, at ZACHNXT. Let me know what you thought of this show. Let me know who you think might challenge for some of those titles at Great American Bash. I got my own theories. I want to hear some of yours. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. Now, in the meantime, I want you to behave yourselves out there, because that's it for me. I have been Zachary Smith. You, as always, have been fantastic. Thank you for being you. Have a great night.